Welcome to Tea with Tanya. I'm your host, Tanya Ambrose, an average millennial navigating life as a maternal health professional, nonprofit founder, and grad student. Join me in the tea tasting room where we spill the tea on finding balance and promoting positive living while doing it all. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Tea with Tanya. I'm your host, Tanya. Thank you for joining me here in the tea tasting room for another episode. Unfortunately, there's no tea in the tea tasting room this week, but fear not, because the teas shall return next episode. There's just no tea. We're on a little water diet right now. There's no tea in the tea tasting room, but have no fear. Definitely the tea will be back. I hope you're doing well. I hope you've done something for yourself to practice self-love, self-compassion, self-care, whatever it is. But I hope you did something to love on yourself even more. From the last time you heard my voice, or just in general, I hope you've been trying to incorporate something, doing something for you and you only at least once a week. Over the last 9 weeks or so, we've been on a journey when it comes to goal setting. We've been on a wellness journey as well. And we've talked about what it means to focus on our goals for ourselves, creating goals for ourselves, failing forward, taking the leap, and finding your purpose and knowing who you are. And as the season winds down, I want to talk about loving yourself between the before and the after, because that's not something that I do often, and I'm not sure if it's something that you do, but you let me know on social media if it's something that you do. But definitely, that's what I want to talk about, loving yourself, the before and after. But before we get into the episode, I do want to share the affirmation for the week. And the affirmation for this week is, I am learning to support myself at every phase of my journey. And that affirmation is, I am learning to support myself at every phase of my journey. And I chose that affirmation because sometimes it's very hard for us to support and realize and recognize where we are on our different journeys. If you're like me, you're thinking you want to head to the next destination. You want to get to the finish line, and you're not even giving yourself a pat on the back for even taking the step towards this journey and even taking small actionable steps. So you definitely want to support yourself at every phase and understand and know that every phase and every part of your journey is not going to be a bed of roses. Society often put an emphasis on the before and after transformation, basically implying that self-love is only valid at the end of our journey. However, I believe that true self-love should essentially exist throughout the entire process, recognizing your progress, and recognizing your growth at every stage. Because sometimes it's very hard to recognize where we are. It's very hard to recognize where you are, and sometimes, like myself, I struggle with self-acceptance, or I have struggled rather with self-acceptance because I was fixated on what the final outcome would be, what the future was going to hold. I would be fixated on what my career is going to look like when I get to a particular part of my career or my journey. What's going to happen if I were to get a particular degree? In my case right now, a master's degree. All these are different things that I think about, and I tend to lose focus, and I just become hyper fixated. I'm very, very fixated on the results, that sometimes I miss the steps leading up to said results, or I miss it on the moments where I'm struggling, where I've accomplished something small, but I'm too focused on the end to even acknowledge what I've accomplished. Let's be for real. We've seen the amazing or these before and after transformations or on social media and even in magazines. But are people still reading magazines? I know I do. But my thing is, sometimes these images can send the wrong message. And I remember being in one class one time where they were told, we were told that, these ads out here, they tend to, they're sending a message. And I can't remember exactly what we were talking about in class. It was a health communication class. And I just remember now being at the stage in my life that whenever I'm watching TV or I'm listening to a radio or YouTube, whatever it is, But to be quite honest now, I've upgraded to my YouTube to premium because I just cannot deal with all the ads. But whenever I'm watching something that has ads, I'm always very mindful to see what the ad is saying, not just what the words are coming out of the actor's mouth, but what the words are saying, what the images are saying, because not many of us are able to decipher what the messaging is. And then we end up internalizing and thinking that we need to look a particular way. We need to make a particular amount of income and all these different things. And it can really and truly send the wrong message. So the idea that we should only love ourselves after reaching a specific goal, it's a bit flawed. We can say it's a bit flawed. But I think when it comes to loving yourself or true self-love, it should not be limited to when you get or cross the finish line. It's essentially a continuous journey because we're all, let's be for real, we're all learning every day. We're learning something new. None of us are meant to stay the same. So as we learn one lesson or we learn something, the next day we're going to learn something. We're going to learn something again. Because I remember I couldn't fully accept myself until I had a bachelor's degree. I remember having an associate's degree, and some of the people around me, they were doing their bachelor's on to master's and even some PhDs or to become medical doctors and these different things. And it was a tough road for me, I will say. But let me tell you, the moment that I realized that my worth was not tied to having, let's say, an associate's degree while my peers had a bachelor's, and that age did not mean a thing because as you've been following along this season, you know, I failed from a nursing program and that kind of knocked me off my rocker. And I placed a very, very high expectation on myself for me to be done with school by a certain age. And I was supposed to be done with my education, be married with kids by the age of 30. And that was not the case. But the minute that I realized that my worth wasn't tied to finishing school by a certain age or being married with kids by a certain age, let me tell you, I think that's when I really and truly started seeing myself transform. And I say this because I've realized and recognized that my worth wasn't tied to these things a few years now. But I'll be honest, it was very hard for me to 100% accept that. So I was still living my life in a sense where, okay, yeah, I know this is not your worth. You're going to go get this degree. You're going to graduate top of your class. You're going to do all these different things that you've set your mind to. But it wasn't until recently when I realized that, you know what, all these things, they don't really mean anything for me. I gotta love myself first. I gotta cherish the before, the struggle when I couldn't see my way. How am I going to make it to accomplish these goals? But also cherishing even the joy part of this journey. Because I'm not on the other side I'm not at the end. I'm in the phase of, I'm in the in-between phase of accomplishing all of my goals. So the minute I realized that, I think I began to love myself more and I was flourishing at every stage on this transformation that I am currently going through for myself. So you definitely want to make sure that you are not tying your worth to something, but cherish the journey that you're currently on. Accept which part on your journey that you are. Because then I want to talk about setting authentic goals. I would have mentioned in a previous episode about making goals for yourselves. So you want to make sure that you're setting goals that align with your values and aspiration and ensure that you have a sense of fulfillment. Because too many times, some of us make a goal based on what we think society wants our goal to be, or what we think our parents, family, friends would like for our goals to be. And definitely when you're pursuing goals that are based on external standards, that can oftentimes lead to disappointment. And I spoke about that briefly on a previous episode. That can lead to disappointment and definitely also lead to self-doubt. So you want to be able to identify what your passions are and your values and get help in setting those goals. Get a journal, get a book, write down what you want your goals to be. I've been talking about smart goals, making smart goals throughout this season. So you want to create your goals and apply the SMART goal strategy to your goal as well. So I've spoken to several individuals over the course of my newly transformed life, and I've just been told to identify my passion and values before definitely setting goals. Because nothing is worse than setting a goal for something that you're not passionate about. Because let me tell you, take it from me, your heart is not going to be in it. You're going to be wondering, why am I doing this? You're going to wake up every day dreading even having to do this as well. So you want to make sure that you identify your passions and values, and then you want to go ahead and set your goals. Because when you connect to your goals with your true self, your journey towards accomplishing and achieving these goals, it becomes more meaningful. It becomes you fall in love with that journey, and it just flows organically. It flows naturally. You don't have to think twice about accomplishing your goals, because essentially you want to embrace the journey. I'm talking about loving yourself during the before and after, but you definitely want to embrace your journey. The journey towards your goal is where real growth happens. Again, take it from me. The journey towards your goal is when you grow, your mindset is going to shift, your work ethic, the way your outlook on life is just going to completely change. And that's when you know that, growth is happening, because it's very essential to appreciate every step. Because again, during this time, you're going to see the person that you are now is not the person that you were 2 weeks ago, a month, a year ago. So you definitely want to appreciate the growth that happens, or the growth that comes with focusing on yourself. Practice self-compassion, patience. These two, they're very crucial during the challenging times when you face these stumbling blocks. And I always talk about turning these stumbling blocks into stepping stones to achieve and accomplish your goal. You definitely want to make sure that you're giving yourself grace, that you are giving yourself that patience to achieve your goals. So too many times for me, one thing about me, I tend to have a timeline. But I think the misunderstanding when it comes to setting a timeline is not leaving room for error, not leaving room for life to happen. You definitely just want to ensure that you leave room for these things, but learn to pick yourself up even if you were to meet these challenges or these stumbling blocks as well. Because think about it this way. You're climbing a mountain to reach your goal, but then you have to remember that every step you take is part of your journey. I'm going to say it again. You are climbing a mountain to reach your goal. So picture it this way. Climbing a mountain, whatever mountain you can picture, to reach your goal. And you got to take every step is part of your journey. So every step you take up that mountain is part of the journey to get towards to the top of that mountain, right? So you want to embrace it, because true beauty really lies in the process. And I've always heard that statement. And I was just like, what process? This process that's stressing me out, giving me a headache. I can't see my way. I don't know when I'm going to accomplish set goals. But no, true beauty lies in the process and definitely not the destination. So as cliche as that may sound, it is definitely the truth. And I'll say this, I'll share this story. When I set out to start this podcast, I started doing Instagram lives. I wanted to be behind the camera, or get in front of the camera rather, because I always told myself I don't have a face for the camera. But that's just my own personal, I won't say insecurity, but just an excuse for me to not be in front of the camera. But when I set out to do this podcast, like I would have mentioned in a previous episode, I didn't necessarily have a plan. I didn't have a plan. I wanted to talk. I wanted to help people. I wanted to be inspiring to other people. I wanted to motivate other people. But I myself at the time, at that phase in my journey, I was not the most inspired person. I wasn't as motivated. I was just legitimately going through the motion of life. And then I got it together. I took a break, got it together, did research, invested into talking to different people who were an expert in the podcasting world, so that I can get the help, because I told myself that, you know what, I started this. One, I got to finish and see it through, but I have other goals that this podcast is going to work towards as well. So when I started this podcast, I thought success, honestly, I thought success meant having thousands of listeners from day one. That I just thought, okay, yes, I'm going to put out this episode. This is going to be the title, and I'm going to have thousands and thousands of listeners from the very start. One, I was a little bit gassed up because my Instagram life was so interactive, and everyone on the live would be, oh, you should start a podcast. And which essentially that was the long-term goal. I was just using the Instagram live as a warm-up. So I just thought from day one that me having a successful podcast meant that I would have had thousands of listeners from day one. But as I would continue to record episode after episode, I realized that I'm starting to realize, I'm going to say I'm starting to realize. I did realize, but I'm still learning that essentially the magic was in the process of me improving my skills and learning to connect with my listeners just like you. So that was where the magic was, investing in an editor who sees me, sees my vision, can put my vision on paper, sometimes even better than myself, to be quite honest, but just understanding that the true magic is in the process of improving my skills, improving my interview skills when I have guests on, improving how I structure an episode, how I want the episode to flow. Because again, this is all still new to me. I'm still learning. And again, now that I've decided to take it as serious as I am, there's a lot that comes with it. And I just realized that, yeah, there are areas that I have to improve upon whenever I get an episode back and I'm listening over before it goes live. Sometimes I do cringe. Because it's like, oh my God, my speaking voice. But I just remember one wise person told me that my voice is going to reach its intended audience. And every time I get cringe or start doubting myself about how I may sound or the things that I'm saying, I always remember that my voice is going to find its intended audience and I'm going to be able to connect with my amazing listener just like you. So think about it that way. The journey is a process. You just got to keep working. When we talk about consistency being key, that is what we mean. Keep pushing through, keep at it, keep perfecting your craft, keep perfecting what is it that you do so that you can get to the finish line. Then we think about loving yourself through failure. You guys know I've talked about, I've talked about my failures, failing from nursing school, failing, not doing this thing, making bad money decisions or bad decision when it came to friends or relationships or whatever the case may be. But one lesson that I will say I've learned, I don't have to learn it again, is that failure is really a natural part of growth and it really does not define your worth. Because look at me, I got my bachelor's of science in public health, graduated top of my class, got into a master's in public health program while also doing a master's in maternal and child health certificate as well. Doing it at the same time, have a job that I love, all these different things, have a successful or have a growing nonprofit rather where I'm in the trenches doing what I have to do and then being consistent with my podcast. So failure is a natural part of growth and it doesn't define your worth. It does not. You definitely want to focus on the importance of learning from your failures and using them as stepping stones towards improvement. So when I talk about turning these stumbling blocks, you want to turn these stumbling blocks into stepping stones and work towards improving who you are as a person, work towards improving in different areas of your life that you think needs improvement as well. Because failure is essentially a word that makes us cringe. It's like a bad word. But at some point in time, learn to flip that script. Failure isn't a roadblock. It's essentially a stepping stone. Like for me, I'm going to always turn the stumbling blocks into stepping stone. If I fail at something, I'll be down for a second, just for a few minutes. I'm not going to even I'll allow myself to feel briefly, but I'm getting up and I'm turning those stumbling blocks into stepping stone. Because essentially, it's okay to stumble once you can pick yourself up. I mean, Aliyah once said, pick yourself up and dust yourself off and try again. And she said that was a word right there. So what matters essentially is how you pick yourself up and how you keep going. So you definitely want to do that. I think about people who fail. I would think about Thomas Edison, who failed a million and one times before creating the light bulb that we all can do without light right now. I think about, again, you guys know I'm a Beyonce fan. I think about Beyonce when she mentioned that when they were young, coming up in Destiny's Child, her father worked so hard to get them signed and they were dropped by these different labels. How her label once told her when she had her debut album that she didn't have her top 10 single. And she would always tell that story that she had 5 number 1 songs on the album, Dangerous in Love. You know what I mean? So you definitely, people fail, or she went swimming one day and her voice was not the same for a performance and her father had to, talk to her. So you think about me failing out of nursing school, picking myself up and thriving in a career that I absolutely love in public health and seeing that I can be of value to this field. So you definitely want to pick yourself up and embrace failure as part of your journey because it is really a testament to your self-love and to how much you see yourself being further than where you are. And one thing I will say, I want to give you some practical steps for cultivating self-love. You definitely want to practice mindfulness because mindfulness helps you to stay present, and it also lets you become more appreciative of your progress. Sometimes when you just be still and and you do a self-reflection as to what is it that you're doing, you definitely will be able to track your progress and see what is it that you are doing. When we talk about self-care routines, they tend to contribute to your overall well-being. I would have mentioned in the episode with Chambria that I have a morning and I have a nighttime routine. There are days when I want to rush these routines, but I realize that rushing these routines was essentially defeating the purpose. So you want to talk about, just have positive self-talk. Keep speaking positivity into your life and don't allow these negative thoughts to stay around for longer than they need to. So you definitely want to make sure that you are embracing where you are on your journey, practice self-compassion. All these are different things that you want to do. You want to make sure that you understand, as I get ready to wrap up, you understand that self-love is an ongoing process and it is not limited to before and after moments. You want to think about the during, the moments that's in between when you're working towards being the best version of yourself. And I want to encourage you to reflect on your current journey and think about how you can practice self-love during all the phases of your journey. Just do it. Get out of your head and just get it done. Because sometimes we limit ourselves because we start overthinking. And I'm the overthinking queen, but I realize when I overthink things, it defeats the purpose. So when I just try to put things on paper by journaling, or I'm just embracing what a situation is at the moment, it just makes life a tad bit easier. So just do it and get out of your head. So as I go, I want you to understand that self-love is a journey with no finish line. It is not about the before or the after. It's truly about the journey in between, the lead up to the before, and then the in between is what plays a major role for you to get to the after. And you'll be able to look back and see how far you have come. So as I leave you, I want to leave you with a question. And I want you to share your thoughts with me on social media. Share your thoughts with me on Instagram at Tea with Tanya Podcast using the hashtag Tea with Tanya. But I want to ask this question as I leave you here today. Ask yourself this. How can you celebrate your growth and love yourself more throughout your journey? So here's the question, and I want you to come to social media when you get to this point and tag me at Tea with Tanya Podcast answering this question, or you can send me a DM, whatever you see fit. But definitely, I want you to answer this question. How can you celebrate your growth and love yourself more throughout your journey? Thank you for joining me for another episode of Tea with Tanya. If you like this episode, be sure to share it with a friend. Don't forget to follow on Instagram at Tea with Tanya Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the weekly Tea Talk newsletter. And of course, rate on Apple or Spotify and subscribe wherever you listen. See you next time. I love you for listening.